If you're a Meatloaf fan, today's your day. Imagine a more sophisticated, refined, more delicious meatloaf. This is what comes to mind when we talk about what we're making today. Tomato farci, or stuffed tomato. This is a classic, one of my personal favorites. So let's begin. So we're going to start by cutting the tops of the tomato off. And be careful not to cut it too thin, we want to use this again. So repeat with the second tomato, get a nice spoon, and then just work your way around. Gently hollow out the inside of the tomato. You want to be careful not to pierce the sides of the tomato, and make sure you keep all of the juice, seeds, and the flesh from the inside. We're going to use this later. So you want to clean it out as much as possible. The seeds can be a little bit bitter, so you don't want to leave any in there. So we're just going to clean out the cap a little bit here. Be careful not to dig in too deep or the stem will fall out, and then you'll be left with this little hole, which is a lot less interesting presentation-wise. You can use just about any size tomato you want for this, but a medium-sized tomato around this big is probably the best. So the tomatoes that we're using today have slightly pointed bottoms and they don't stand well on their own. So we're going to correct that. We're just going to make a small cut on the bottom so it has a nice little flat plane for it to stand on. So repeat this step with the other tomato. Be careful not to cut too far because everything will leak out of the bottom. So that's exactly what you're looking for. So now we're going to start cooking our farce, or the filling. So a hot pan, olive oil, throw in some bacon, smoked bacon, some garlic, crushed, small dice of mirepoix, carrot, celery, onion, and mushroom. Around the same amount as the beef, and around an equal amount of each vegetable. Throw in a sprig of thyme, a little bit of salt, and this is going to cook very quickly. So we're going to saute this. And what we're looking for is just a little bit of color. And now we're going to deglaze with the juice from the insides of the tomato. Just simply take all the seeds, all the inside of the tomato, crush it, and pass it through a sieve. So we're going to deglaze all of that nice flavor, and the tomato juice will reduce. So we're going to put a little bit of Lea and Perrins. Cook that down a little bit. So we don't want to cook this down to mush, but we want to make sure that everything's cooked. The carrots will be the last thing to cook. So just take the point of your knife or a pin, stick it through. It should go through easily. So we're just going to finish with a little bit of pepper here. And that's it. Everything's caramelized. We reduced all of our liquids into something delicious. So the most important thing for this is the color. It should look just like this. So transfer to a bowl, and we're going to remove our thyme sprig and garlic. And now we're going to put in our ground beef. You can also use ground pork or a mixture of the two. So this recipe is more about the technique than the quantities. Just to be sure not to put too much garnish, vegetable, I mean. So we're going to mix this well, and also note we're not going to add any more salt to this. We seasoned our garnish, and we're going to also add some Parmesan later on, which is going to do a lot of the seasoning for us. So mix this well. Now we're going to add some Parmesan. Put as much as you want. And unlike meatloaf, we're not going to add any binding agents. Just a little bit more pepper here. No breadcrumbs, no egg. The Parmesan will help bind this to a degree, and the shell of the tomato is going to hold everything together. I also prefer not to add any binding agents if they're not needed, because they almost always take away the natural flavor from the main ingredient. So we're going to mix this up well. So you want to preheat your oven to 180 degrees Celsius or 356 degrees Fahrenheit. And depending on your oven, it should take around 10 to 15 minutes to cook. So now we're ready to stuff our tomatoes. So this step is pretty straightforward. You want to make sure that there's an even amount of stuffing in each tomato so that they will cook at the same rate. So now we're going to put the tops on, and we're going to put them in the oven. So the best way to cook them in the oven is to put them on a tray with a tiny bit of oil. Just a tiny bit of neutral oil so it doesn't burn like canola oil. I'm going to throw a piece of crushed garlic with the skin still on, which will release a little bit of aroma into the juice we will use to baste after, and a tiny bit of olive oil on the top. So in the oven 10 minutes. 10 minutes later, we're cooked. See all of this nice juice at the bottom. It's a mix of beef, rendered beef fat, and tomato, and garlic, and olive oil, and we're just going to sprinkle it over. So now we're going to start plating. I'm just putting some spinach coulis on the plate, and simply put our tomato on. Simple, delicious, and so easy. Well, I hope you enjoyed that video. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to see further recipes and techniques, please like and subscribe, and consider supporting us on Patreon. It really helps us keep going. Also, if you have any questions or comments, put them down below and we will get back to you as soon as possible. And as always, happy cooking!